Where are we?
Usually we're like up here where Venezuela is.
I don't know where we are.
I don't know either.
How will we find our way if we don't know where we are to begin with?
Well, there's South Georgia. Do you think that's close to our Georgia?
Is it an island?
It's apparently.
I didn't know we had an island that Georgia was an island. But Tennessee's near Georgia, right?
Yeah, so we have to be, maybe that's us. Maybe that little dot.
But I just don't know where to go if we don't know where we are.
No.
Like, do we walk? Hi, my name is Diane Benson, and welcome to this month's LLK12, Learning with the Library, kindergarten through 12th grade. This month, our focus is on geography. So, we are in a building, in a town, in a county, in a state, in a country, on a continent, in the world. Geography is about all of that. It's about people and places and the land and how all of that mixes together to create the world that we live in. And today's focus is going to be how to incorporate some geography into your learning with your student. So we have the good old globe here, always fun to have. In our house, we always kept a globe. We have several here in the children's department. And as you hear about stories on the news, or maybe you're reading a book, it is so fun just to spin around and say, look, that little boy that we're reading about lives in Libya, and we live way over here in Tennessee. And talk about that and how the world is different over there. The land is different. The language is different. You may even talk about how to get from Libya to the United States. But the idea with geography is that it is just, or it can be in so many ways, just a part of the world. So geography is fun as a unit study or as a jumping off place, because you can really cover all the core subjects when you're looking at the overall topic of geography. Certainly, there are maps. You can get out maps of your city, maps of your town. You can incorporate math by looking at, okay, on this map, 1 centimeter is equal to 100 miles. So how far are we from Alaska, for example? So you can incorporate math. You can incorporate map reading. And then, of course, the fun part that I think about geography is also looking at the different cultures around the world. Some people like to pull in some cooking. Maybe if you're studying Alaska or Russia or a country in South America, you pull a cookbook from that region, and now you make it a fun activity with your students. So you get to cook together and talk about that cuisine that is country may be famous for. And lots of times the cuisine also is impacted by the local resources. Is it seafood heavy? Are they near the ocean? Is it a land that is very arable and there is a lot of farming, or is it not? So you can learn so much just by diving in at any of these different points. Songs from around the world can be fun for especially younger children to learn. What are their traditions? And you can incorporate this with different holidays too. I always think one of the things that's fun around Christmas time is how Christmas or winter is celebrated in different countries throughout the world, and look at those different traditions and how they do that. Land formations. Now this is exciting because, man, do they live on the ocean? Is a country in the mountains? Is it desert? Is it forest, plains, etc.? A whole lot of geography is about the land, the rocks. One of the cool things I think about our country is, man, do we have a variety here. I mean, you can go from, the Smoky Mountains with all this greenery out west to a lot of red and desert and rock formations and everything in between. If you're on the Mississippi, very river related. So looking at all of that and what is going on physically, that can be a lot of science. History is another thing that can relate to geography. Really, anytime you're studying history, I encourage you to have some sort of globe or map and look at what you're studying historically. I know some students who are really need to learn hands-on. You maybe even put out a map and get little toy soldiers and reenact a battle and how they came and took this land in the middle or fought a big battle there. So all sorts of things that you can incorporate in. Tourist attractions in different places. That can always be fun. What does that country or even town like to highlight? Look at the people, the government, the language. All of that is going to give you better insight into what is going on in that part of the world. So, language is another one I think is kind of fun too. Let's say you are studying a country or looking at geography in a certain area. Maybe you don't like go all in and learn a whole language, but maybe you learn to say, hello, my name is, in a few different languages related to the geography or the countries that you're studying. So lots of opportunities there. World literature is another one. So if you're studying geography in a part of the world, maybe read some of the literature from that part of the world also. So I think the big picture here is that geography is such a great jumping off place because it can go English, it can go math, it can go science, it can go history, it can go arts and cooking and traditions and people and languages. Geography just gives you a foundation to cover all of that. So a really fun subject to learn. So just some other things that through the years that we did in our home and also when we came to the library, we used a lot is the resources available here and then sometimes at home. We would have a globe, as I mentioned. We hung up a map of the United States on the wall, and it was really fun because, sometimes it'd be like, oh, so-and-so is going on vacation to South Dakota. Where is that at, compared to Tennessee? And just learning those types of things and having that kind of constantly available to you. With my son, we had map placemats. So when we ate at the dinner table, we had one of the world and one of the United States. And sometimes we had the markers where we would even draw on them and then wipe it off and draw on them again. So the idea is that learning is everywhere. Learning can be everything. And there's so many opportunities when you just kind of open up. One of the other things I want to mention about geography that I knew from my background in psychology, but I had actually seen this with my son when we were talking about geography. So we would sing geography songs, we would read about different parts of the world, and then it would seem like if we had maybe been reading about Cameroon or something, all of a sudden, like we would hear it in the news or hear somebody else refer to Cameroon. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we know where that is. We've talked about it. We've learned about it. And that's one of the cool things about the brain. You can prime the brain to pay attention to certain stimuli from your environment. So it's kind of like if you've ever heard if somebody says, oh, I never see yellow cars, and you're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of yellow cars out there. And then all of a sudden you see all these yellow cars, and maybe they do too now, and they never really saw them before. It doesn't mean that it's some poof magic that all of a sudden cars are turning yellow. What it means is they were there all along, and until our brain was primed to pay attention to them, we didn't realize that they were there. Oh, I think one of the fun ones with that is like, do you ever watch scary movies? Okay, so of course it doesn't take a whole lot to scare me sometimes, but you watch a scary movie, and then especially if you're home alone or something like that, you turn off the TV, and then all of a sudden the house makes all of these noises, and you're super aware of them all. And really, those noises have always been there. The floor has always creaked, the heater's always kicked on, the radiator's always made that noise, etc., the refrigerator. But until we were watching that scary movie, that was just part of the background that we didn't pay attention to. Now we're primed to pay attention to that. So I encourage you, when you talk about different countries, to kind of then pay attention with your student to how often it comes up in the world. And some of them with funny names are just fun, like Kalamazoo, Michigan. I mean, that's just a fun word. And once you kind of like, make jokes and say Kalamazoo, Kalamazoo, it can be fun to hear that or see it referenced, or all of a sudden it's like, oh man, there's more stuff about Kalamazoo than I ever realized. When my son was really little, the country Djibouti, he thought was hilarious. I'll let you figure that one out. But then all of a sudden it's like Djibouti, it's like we would hear it different places. And then we would know it was a country, we'd know in general where it was and information about that. Puzzles are another great way to learn about geography. Putting them together, you can get world puzzles, state puzzles. We have puzzles and activities back here as well at the library. And the library has a lot of different cultural events and things from different countries and about the region. So geography can be here too. I know we're doing an Appalachian series. And, when you look at how Appalachia relates to like Scotland and Ireland, like the physical geography of those two areas, I mean, it's really interesting to put all that together. So I know I rambled a little bit much today because I think geography is just kind of cool. It is a great way to explore the world that we live in. And it doesn't have to be far-flung places around the globe. It could be locally, your geography, from your street to your city. One other interesting thing that I want to point out is that, flat maps are kind of interesting, because how do you take this round ball of rock and make it flat and make it really accurately represent sizes? And so for your older students, they may want to research some of that, like how accurate are our maps when we flatten them out, and how the sizes of the different countries compare. Even how we got the borders for the different countries. In the United States, how the states got their shapes is very fascinating. And then one other thing I just want to point out is just the whole idea that because the Earth is round and we're floating out here in space, who's to say this is the top? Because it's just a round ball. I mean, if you're playing with a ball on the playground, I mean, where's the top of that ball? If it's just a red round ball, there really isn't a top to that. And I think it's really kind of cool when you look at what would it look like if we flipped it. Like, what if the South we considered on the top? And so I just think this is a kind of a cool version of this part of the world if we kind of flipped that and had the South on top and we had the United States down here with Canada below us. So just some interesting things to look at when you are looking at maps. Geography relates great to travel. If you and your family are traveling, really cool to use maps and look at states and the different cultures and land formations. Again, even here in the United States. And I'm just going to say, the ability to travel is not a luxury afforded to everybody. I think growing up, I maybe went to 4 states up and down I-75, and that was probably the extent of my travel for the majority of my childhood. But you know where I could go? Y'all know what I'm going to say, right? I could go to the library. And in the library, where my parents did take me, I could read books about all of these different places in our country and around the world and imagine what it would be like to be in those places. So let's go ahead and move over and look at some of the resources available on the computer. All right, so let's move on over to the electronic resources available through the Blount County Public Library. And the first one that we're going to go to, I'm just going to go Learning, and I'm going to go down to the Tennessee Electronic Library, TEL. And we are going to start with students. And let's just kind of start with the early ages, because I think that's really a great time to kind of plant some of these ideas, to expand the world. Kids are really, really interested, especially in other children around the world and what life is like for them, etc. So the first place I'm clicking on is Pebble Go, and we have a whole section in Pebble Go on social studies. So all sorts of information. And so if you see here, continents, countries, culture
and families.
Governments, it's going to talk landmarks, landforms, jobs in the community, people and the environment, the United States. So these are so many good resources, maps that are here available free through your Blount County Public Library. A way to begin studying the world. So if continents, for example, maybe I start out here and want to start with where I live in North America. I can have it read to me. I can also learn about the climate, the landforms, the animals living here, and then can click on and learn more words. So anyway, the Pebble Go is really cool for younger kids to get in there to make learning fun and give them a chance to play. Let me go ahead and go over here to streaming services. And through Hoopla and Canopy, you can get in there and you can just do a search for geography and get all sorts of books, electronic books, movies, songs, a really good resource. And then you can kind of refine it from there if you want to look into the food or music or something about the culture, traditions, etc. So let's go back to learning, and this time we are going to go over to Peterson Test Prep. Okay, we're going to scroll down here, prep for an exam, and let's say you're a high school student. So we're moving beyond what the Pebble Go would be for. And there are advanced placement materials that are available here. So let's click on advanced placement because there is an AP test on human geography. So you can kind of scroll down, there it is, human geography, and click in there and you can kind of do test prep, learn more about it. Some people use this to study for an actual AP exam. Some people just use it as a way to kind of learn what questions to ask. And then they head to the library and get books on the different topics. So a really good resource for older students. In addition, just in general, in the Tennessee Electronic Library, for the middle school and the high school students, let's just look at high school. Just even going to Gale OneFile or high school Gale in context and just looking up different topics like about maps and cartography. I mean, they can use this to write research papers, gather all sorts of professionally reviewed literature that they can then quote or use as a resource in research papers. And sometimes it's fun for students to even do a poster board. Sometimes I've seen groups of people kind of get a group of kids together and they all do different countries and they might have a little music playing in the background, a little food to taste, and then they have a poster board with information, and then you can walk around and have the kids talk to each other because that's a big part of learning too. If we can get students to say back or teach others what they have learned, then they have a better shot of remembering it. So and of course, always the card catalog. Look for books on geography. So many books here at the library that'll get you started on that, but lots of good online resources as well.
Well, you know what Albert Einstein used to say?
What's that?
The only thing you absolutely have to know is the location of the library.
Library! I hope you've enjoyed this month's LLK12 Focus on Geography. Join us next month when the focus is Math Madness. Do you know where we are?
No.
I am so lost. I am existentially lost.
Well, you know what Albert Einstein used to say all the time?
What's that?
What did he say?